Okay, what I've done is I've taken a big sander, a table fixed sander, and I've sanded down a lot of the wood after cutting it. Rounded the edges more, brought up the tail section, rounded that, and took off quite a bit of wood that way to smooth it out. With the head also, I started rounding it out, flattened it out so it'll fit nicely on there. And I'll have to use a Dremel to bring it down to the design style I want. And I also use that table sander to bring down this and smooth this out around the ends. I leave these rather pointed because I want to make feathers, that stick out on the back, and it'll glue on in that fashion. I'm never perfect with my cuttings. No duck is the same, and I don't mind if they're a little asymmetrical, shall we say. And that's out of the way. That's what I'm aiming for. It does get around to looking like this eventually, by sanding and smoothing and cutting. You can see the feathers that I'm trying to aim for here, with those that stick out. It'll be slightly different, can't help it. Each duck is crowned different, but because I do it by hand, everything's going to be all its own. It's like the tail feathers are similar, but they'll never be exactly the same. This is giving an example on some of the, this is the one that I'm working on, where the tail feather comes to a point more or less. And this one's going to be very similar. But this one, you plan ahead, and I'm going to make the tail feathers kind of fanned out. So I left a lot more wood instead of like this one. And these are going to be just layered together, whereas these I'm going to try to spread them out more. But you have to plan ahead what you want to do as far as leaving the wood that you need to work with. Okay, this is what I use to glue it together, or clamp it together really. I just use my desktop, the C-clamp, and I use just Elmer's wood glue and put it on there liberally. And then take my toothpick and get the excess glue off around the edges. Clean that off. It doesn't bind up into your Dremel and gum it up. And then I just leave it for several hours, at least an hour, to let it dry and clamp it in place. Try to give you a little update. I started dremeling the duck's neck down, took off a bunch of wood, and rounded it out. Brought the bill down. Doesn't have to be that round, but sometimes I like it that way. And then I started to Dremel more away at the cheek to raise that out, and to smooth the neck off so that it'll fit on the body better. And I also brought this down to smooth that out and blend it back in where it glued it together. And on this side the same way. I started sanding this down to bring these tail feathers out next. I'll draw them in and then Dremel them out. And that's what we're hoping to, what my intentions are. Okay, Dremel the head down quite a bit more, getting into almost wood burning shape. You can see the differences and similarities. Each duck I do is totally different. I'll have to measure the eyes to get them in so that they're equal distance back on each side. That takes a little bit of planning. A little more crucial because you want the eyes pretty much across from one another as best as you can, same distance. Then I dremeled down A lot of the tail feathers are still a little thick, but I leave them thick because pine is very soft wood. And I brought this down more, and I'll draw in the feathers next, and then start carving them in. These I leave a lot because I want the larger wing feathers to look like that. And hopefully it'll turn out just like the other one, or similar enough anyway. Okay, this is the Dremel I use, and the carbide bit I do most of my work with. So I didn't show this before. But I've dremeled this down and smoothed this out. It works very nicely for me. It takes off the wood and puts in the feathers. And I use it to form the head. And I've marked out the eyeballs where I want to put the eyes. And I'll Dremel a hole for the eyes to go into. And like I said before, take and measure the distance. You use a regular ruler if you want. And try to keep them consistent from side to side and the distance from the end of the bill, so that they look consistent from side to side. And then you also try to make sure that you've measured up this way so that one isn't higher than the other, kind of like that one is slightly lower than this one. But also the head is a little crooked. I don't think you could see that. But the head's kind of tilted too, so it's a little shorter on that side. And now you can see a little